Coming up on the Tall Mike Wine Podcast.
Everybody hates it when they hear their voice on tape for the first time. Everybody. Those millennials, they like to put Post-it notes on whiteboards. They really do.
That's right. What do you think we're here for?
We're here to enjoy ourselves and each other. You got to find your people. And it's not hard to find your people because there are so many people. You know? And they keep making more of them.
Alcornoque.
See, I can roll my R's pretty well, can't I?
Yeah, you're improving your accent. Alcornoque.
And now, the Tall Mike Wine Podcast.
The cell phones have been silenced. The wine has been poured. And these glasses are not props. It's real wine. And just like that, the podcast begins. The Tall Mike Wine Podcast. The wine podcast that's not all about wine. The wine podcast like no other. Number 14 on the FeedSpot list of the best wine podcasts. And I'm your host, the eponymous Tall Mike Wine. Welcome to the podcast, heard in 66 countries and on 6 continents and in 48 of these United States. If you're wondering who the slackers are, it's both of the Dakotas, North and South. Weird, right? From Huntsville, Alabama to Huntington, West Virginia. From Austin, Texas to Mound, Minnesota. Yes, Mound, birthplace of the Tonka truck. You see, the eastern part of Mound sits right on Lake Minnetonka. You get it? Wherever you are, I thank you for listening. Now, get to work drumming up a little more action for the podcast. Rate and review, and tell your friends. They tell me it helps a lot. Also, get yourself subscribed so you don't miss an episode. If this is your first time here, well, hey, thanks for finding me. When this episode is over, scroll through the previous 2.5 years worth and check out my archive of episodes. It's all available for free. Now it's time to begin episode 44 from my home studio in Novato, California. And my guest is zooming in from Mexico City. He created and operates a culinary experience company called KÜA Kocina Nómada, creating personalized experiences with food at people's homes or places like the beach or in the forest. He also hosts not one, but 2 podcasts, one in Spanish called Vino Con Todo, and the brand new English language podcast, Wine It All. Man, I better step up my game. I'm a total slacker with just one podcast in English. Let's say hello to Javier de La Torre. Hola, amigo.
Hola, amigo. Hello, Mike. How are you? It's very good to see you, and thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be a guest in your podcast, and well, here we are.
Here we are. I should say that this is another episode that was inspired by an encounter I had with you and your wife at Nicholson Ranch in Sonoma, where I work. And this is something that's happening more and more often. I mentioned that I have a podcast, and someone says back to me, I have a podcast also. And it was lovely spending some time with you and your wife, Tita, a few weeks back. You were here in California. You were just cruising through the area, drinking some nice wine, having a beautiful vacation.
That was a very good coincidence. We had a great time, my wife and I, wine tasting that you hosted. Very interesting to see all the surroundings in Napa, Sonoma. Very good coincidence that both have a podcast, and great to be here, my friend.
I think this is now the 4th or 5th time I've met somebody that has a podcast, and of course I have them on my podcast to talk about that, and then I go on their podcast, and I'm going to be on your podcast, right?
That's right. That's right. I think it's a great idea, this podcast and this way to connect with people, huh?
I love it so much. I love that I can just dial you up on Zoom and I can see your face. I can see your smiling face. So let's first talk about Vino Con Todo, the podcast, which was your first podcast. When did you start it and why did you start it?
I do volunteering in a place that I study for translation. I do some translation, some simultaneous translation. I was doing a translation for a podcast that this girl does for this organization. Talking to her, it was interesting to me when I heard my voice. It's very interesting when you speak normally in the daily life, and when you listen to yourself in a recording. You know, you find out that you have to take care of certain details. No?
Right.
And,
everybody hates it when they hear their voice on tape for the first time.
That's right.
Everybody.
Exactly. And I noticed that the way of I spoke in the translation was very different. And anyway, I was talking to this girl, and she told me, "Listen, I do some training for people who wants to do some podcast." And in those days, I was thinking about doing something else about my activities related to gastronomy, to wine. I am doing right now the certification for sommelier. And then I told this girl, "Well, I want to take the training with you for doing the podcast." It was very fun. A lot of interesting stuff that she taught me about how to record, about how to schedule your interviews. Sure, you know about all these details. That's why I started. So I took the training, and a few months ago, I just launched my first episode, and it's been a lot of fun.
It is fun. I have a blast doing my podcast.
Yeah.
I've actually listened to a few episodes. However, mi español es muy malo. So tell me what happens on the show. Who do you talk to? What are the topics?
What happens on the show is that main purpose is to connect with people related to wine, food. And my audience is basically foodies, people who is looking for new experiences in the restaurants, wines, new ways to enjoy a moment with your beloved ones, either at restaurant at homes. I connect with chefs, sommeliers, companies that sell wines, or somebody that has a certain type of experience related to food and wine. By doing so, it's interesting because you end up getting to know interesting people, to learn a lot from people. That's basically the idea, to connect. And I divide it in three basic areas: the people, the places, and the experiences. After doing some connection with the people that I am interviewing or that are participating in the episode, the ones that I'm chatting to do some call to action, to offer to our audience some kind of special deal or an invitation to know the place, to know the experience that my guest is offering.
I think it's fascinating. People that are in the culinary world or the wine world, a lot of them didn't intend to get into that world when they were young. And I find that doing this podcast, just that story, how you went from being whoever you were, whoever you thought you were when you were young, to being who you are now in the world of food, the culinary world, or the wine world, those transitions are pretty fascinating. And we're going to talk about yours a little later. But first, I want to talk about the new podcast. Now you're branching out, the new English language podcast, Wine It All. What inspired you to do another podcast? Because I know they take a lot of work, a lot of time. Is it going to be kind of the same thing? You'll be talking to people, but only in English?
Yeah, that's the idea. When I came with the name in Spanish, and especially related to that story that I told you that I volunteer on translating, I said, well, this is a tool or a talent that I have. Maybe sometime I can use it. And also would be interesting to expand to other countries or to people here in Mexico, especially in Mexico City. There's a lot of good options on the wine and food industry, and there's a lot of people from around the world that's turning their attention to Mexico City because of the culinary offers that we have. No, so I thought it was a good idea, and then I came out with this name, which made sense that it's similar to the name in Spanish. The name in Spanish means wine with everything. Didn't sound too good in English, so this phrase came up to my mind, and I think that it sounded okay. No, I
like it. Wine it all, and I'm going to be on the show. And that's coming up. It's coming up soon. Now, we're recording this in the last few days of August. You're launching that on September 1st.
That's right. On early September, I'm going to launch that.
Okay. So keep an eye out for that. You can find it on all the apps. Are you putting it on all the apps? You better be.
Yeah, that is good to be on the map, on the podcast technology, on all the platforms and everything.
Yeah. When you say you can find it wherever you find podcasts, you better be on all the apps.
Exactly.
There's a whole bunch of them. Now has come the time on the Tall Mike Wine podcast where I ask my guest, Javier de La Torre, what is in your glass?
I have here a red wine. It's a Côtes village. It's good. It's in that area. They do some very interesting wine. It's from South Rhône, and it's a blend.
Okay.
Has Syrah, Grenache, Monastrell, and Carignan.
Okay.
But it's a wine that I regularly drink, in the weekdays. It's easy to drink. It has very good aromas of red fruits. It has good acidity. I think it's a very good option for a relaxing lunch or a good one for talking to my friend on the podcast.
Do you have the bottle there? Can you hold it up? Can I take a picture of it?
Yeah, sure.
I take a picture of things, and then I see what it is. You have Costco down there.
That's right. I am a huge fan of Kirkland wine. I think it's a great quality price relation. In the course that I am taking right now, the course of sommelier that I am doing right now, I learned that the master sommeliers do a good job with the Kirkland brand. They go to the vineyards and made a good selection, a good blend. So I found very, very good quality wine in that brand.
So that's a Kirkland Côtes du Rhône. What's the vintage?
Côtes du Rhône, 2021.
2021. Very cool. Mm-hmm. And they do a lot of blending down there in the southern Rhône, as opposed to the northern Rhône region, where they say, no, we just have Syrah up here. I'll need a picture for the Instagram. I post these on Instagram, and if you want to follow me on Instagram, you may do so at Tall Mike Wine. You got some coasters, right? When you were at the winery, I gave you some coasters.
I do have some coasters of your Tall Mike Wine podcast. That's a great idea. That's a great idea. And I'm gonna copycat that marketing.
Oh, you certainly may. I mean, you're in Mexico. It doesn't matter. You can copy. You can copy it. Yes, the Tall Mike Wine podcast coasters. I hand them out at the winery, but if you would like your own set, you can email me at tallmikewine@gmail.com, and I will send you a small stack of the official coasters of the podcast. This company you have now, KÜA Kocina Nómada. Tell me about that. It was
previous to the pandemic years. I was kind of figuring out what to do with my life. It's an interesting story. I realized that what I liked was cooking and related to food and wine. So I hired a design company to do some analysis, to do some naming and branding, to start this new adventure. So it was a very interesting process because I sat down in a meeting room with a bunch of millennials and asked me questions. and it was good because we had a big board. When I answered some questions, they started sticking some post-its because it was, either emotions or either analytical.
Oh, yeah. So, those millennials, they like to put post-it notes on whiteboards. They really do.
That's right. And they came out with a very interesting naming because KÜA is a word in an indigenous language here in Mexico. The meaning is nurturing body and soul. That was kind of the result of the story that I told them, because I believe very strongly that when you sit down at a table, either with friends or with family, I mean, the greatest memories that I have from my childhood are at the table at my grandparents' home or with my parents at home. When we did some barbecue. I think that it's something that since I was a small kid, it nurtured my soul and my body, because I always like to eat a lot. I mean, I remember getting into the kitchen to my mom or my grandma to see what I could eat. They were kind of tell me, wait, it's not ready yet. And they gave me something to eat, no? But anyway, they couldn't get rid of me. So they put me to do some jobs. So I ended up, helping do something. That's why I think that the preparing, well, it's not even the preparing, it goes prior to that. When you pick the ingredients, I remember some stories from my childhood, going with my mom to the market and picking the ingredients and everything. And I think that's where the story starts, picking the ingredients, putting your energy on the food, and then the preparing, and then when everybody's together on the table, it's nurtures the soul and also the body.
And all along that path from, and even before the shopping, there's the planning. On my day off from the winery, those are the days I choose to cook something a little more elaborate because I have time. And those are some of the first thoughts I have in the morning when I wake up. What am I going to cook today? And then I think about it for a good several hours. And then, yes, I go off to the store. And then I come home and I start turning on the burners and getting out the cutting boards and the knives and start chopping things. And then pretty soon the food starts hitting the hot pans and you get that
That's
then
right.
all of that energy, I think this is what you're talking about. All of that energy goes into the food and into the experience at the table. It's a beautiful thing and it's a powerful thing.
It's beautiful. And one of the things that I like about cooking is the improvisation. That you open the fridge based on what you have on stock, you kind of invent something, and it turns out well. It doesn't have to be a very structured recipe, because
No.
I remember the recipes from my grandma, from my mom, that they had to be very specific. But I like more the improvisation style of cooking. No?
Yeah, I feel that recipes are great for people just starting out with their cooking, to kind of get you an idea of what kind of things work together and what you have to have in certain things. But, somebody else's ratios in a recipe, how much garlic, how many onions, that's all to personal tastes. So you can start stretching things and changing things, leaving a few things out. And then you say, oh, I bet I could add some of this and it would be really good because I like that. So this company, KÜA Kocina Nómada, you take people places and feed them, or you go to their houses and feed them. Tell me more about this.
That goes with the second part of the naming. That it's KÜA. It comes with a K, and then Cocina Nómada. Cocina means kitchen. In Spanish, it's written with a C, but it is written, in my case, with a K, related to the K of KÜA. Okay. Cocina Nómada. The meaning is nomad cuisine. So it's nomad because I don't have a place, I don't have a restaurant, and that is something that my daughters always told me, Dad, why don't you put a restaurant? Because when I was cooking something that they like, they have some favorite dishes that I prepare, and I told them, well, listen, I have a lot of respect to the restaurant business. I like more the fun of cooking for the family and friends. What it takes to set up a business is good, but it kind of takes out the fun of it.
It's complicated,
It's complicated, no?
And what those chefs do, you really have to give them a lot of credit. But that is hard work. It's a hard life. And
I felt it too when I had to do some experiences. I have a lot of fun, but it's a hard work, So the idea of nomad cuisine or Cocina Nómada is that we go to your place. When I engage with a client, I like to talk with them, to get to know them and ask them what they like. What do I suggest? And then we end up putting together a menu or some options. So when I go to the places, we prepare and they help or they participate on the preparation.
Oh, that's cool.
And there's also some spots that I have which are very close where I live. There's some forest here, like half an hour driving. So I have some spots where we do some kind of a picnic, like a gourmet picnic. So I hire a waitress. I put a beautiful table with the cloth and glasses and everything. So you're sitting there in a small valley watching the forest, but you have a waiter that is taking care of you. You have the chef, myself, that is taking care of the guests, and we talk about stories and prepare together. I have a great time together, which is compared to the experience that you have in a restaurant, but I kind of move the restaurant to the forest, no?
Right. You move it wherever you want to.
That's right.
The true Nómada. So is it smaller groups? Is it larger groups? Is it a little of everything?
I have some clients that, for instance, at the end of last year, it's a company that they hired my services for preparing a meal at the forest for the directors of the company. So it was and their wives. So it was a group of 12 people. It was good. So I prefer small groups, even though also they have some other clients that they hire me for preparing the food for the whole company. It was like 75 people. But in this case, it's more logistics. Right. I had to hire more waiters and people who help me. Sure. It was also more business-wise interesting. We also set up some dynamics so they could have fun, etc. But I am more to the small group, to the more gourmet group. No?
Now, is this service that you do, is this aimed at more of a wealthy clientele? Is it expensive to do this?
No, it's not expensive. I am directed to all the clients that appreciate the experience. It is expensive depending on what you want to drink or what you want to eat. Based on that, I charge a service fee, but it's not to wealthy people. I can do it for either for wealthy people or for some regular people that wants to have a nice picnic. But the important ingredient for me is that the client kind of appreciate and knows how to enjoy the the experience.
Yeah. You come here, you eat the food, and just have a good time. Stay off your phone.
Exactly.
Don't be staring at your phone the whole time.
Oh yeah. That's a hard one to achieve, but eventually in the forest we achieve it. But again, I mean, they start taking pictures. I mean, nowadays the phone is something that is practically attached to our body. No? But
yeah, you can't really avoid it. You really can't.
Yeah.
It would seem to me that all of this that we've talked about, the podcasts, the KÜA Kocina, Nómada, I love saying that. This is all recent stuff, sort of your life's second act, if you will. I want to talk about your earlier life, a lot of amazing accomplishments. You sent me your bio, and you spent time in the world of finance and banking and development of a power plant in northern Mexico. You consulted for Pemex, the government-owned oil company, and then you spent a great deal of time in the fitness industry, opening fitness centers in a few states and selling fitness equipment. That's a lot of stuff, and to me, that's a lot of business kind of stuff. Tell me about your early life. What pushed you on that path to the earlier life in that sort of environment?
I think that life's all about the decisions. And like, for instance, one of the important decisions that we make in life is what are you going to study? No? And I was I was a teenager, and I really didn't know what to study because, I mean, honestly, I was very good at school. I liked everything. I was good with math, with history and everything. Ended up studying business. I had a bachelor in business. For some reason, I started working at the bank back in those days. And it was interesting because, it's always good to have a financial culture to know how the economy works. I remember, working at the bank, you had to read the papers. He started working as a money market trader, which was a lot of fun. It was like going to Vegas because we were, young kids doing some light boys operations. And,
making big bets on things.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't make a lot of money there. I mean, I was just it was just my salary, but I wasn't in the way of people like you see in the movies that you make a lot of money. I was an employee there in the bank, but it was a lot of fun. I felt that it wasn't what I liked, no? But I worked there because some other friends worked there. After that, for some reason, I started working for a big industrial company, a steel mill company that is located in northern Mexico. The tool of speaking English was it that opened for me the door in that job because I was working with the director of the energy division, which was an American guy, which, by the way, his name was also Mike. And
there's a lot of us.
Yeah. That's why I got into this job, because I kind of helped this guy to communicate with the engineers, with the people in the coal mines and everything. And we built a very strong relationship. Today, he's my friend. That's how I get into the power generation industry. I understood how to develop a project, how to do the project financing, because I had the chance to talk to investment bankers, to investors and everything.
Okay.
We had a lot of fun. I mean, back in those days, we were kind of in the wavelength of working hard and playing hard. No? So, but anyway, it still was this kind of sense that it wasn't what I was like that I loved doing. No? It was still a job. And then when I get into the fitness industry, I started back in those days. Well, I forgot to mention, I got married very young. I was married with my wife. To my wife when I was 24.
Yeah, and you're still married.
Yeah, we're still married.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a great story. I mean, we're soulmates, and it's something we have lived a lot of things, ups and downs and everything. And then when I finished the job at this coal-fired power plant, didn't come to fruition because the company that I work with come to bankruptcy. And that's an ingredient that comes in Mexico because as you know, my memory from back in the 80s and the 90s is that there's been a lot of crisis in Mexico. No? Now it's a little bit more stable. Back in those days, there was a lot of instability, high inflation, etc. And that affects to the people, to the business and everything. Somehow I was working in a path, but then turned out to be a crisis. So then I have to kind of switch lanes I get into the fitness industry, working for some big brands, these big box gyms. And then I had the experience of product development, and then started working for these companies. And I said, well, I want to do my own brand because I knew how to operate, to put together a business. So long story short, I gathered the money. I get some investors, some people to trust me. And I started this gym in Mérida. In this period of time, me and my family, we live in different states in Mexico. We live in Coahuila, we live in Cancun, we live in Mérida. When we were living in Cancun, I was a sales rep for live fitness equipment. Mm-hmm. So that's why I learned the business to how to equip a hotel or a spa or a gym. No?
Okay.
And that's when it all came sense to when we moved to Mérida, it all made sense to put my own fitness center. I started good. I have in the first years, it was a successful business. And that's when I started to do some bad decisions because I wanted to grow fast. I partnered with some people that I met in southern Mexico, and in 2-3 years we had like four fitness centers in southeastern Mexico. But made some bad decisions, taking some debt and everything, and then all of a sudden in Mérida, big players of the fitness industry came in. First 3 or 4 years in my business was very successful. The main payment that I had to do in my business was the rent, because I rented a place in a shopping center, which was expensive. Initially, it was okay to pay the rent and to do it was a profitable business. But then, and I started to play golf. I started to not take care of the business. I started to think that I could have many fitness centers, partner with people, and then the destiny reached me. And after 7 years, I was not able to pay the rent of the business.
Okay.
And prices started to go down in the gyms. Mérida is not a big city, so people first go to a gym, and if they open a new gym, they go to the new gym. Anyway, after in the 7th or 8th year, I had to close the business.
Okay.
And it cost a lot of money, and that was it. And then
it sounds like that type of industry is very cyclical, where you can be up and you can be down very fast in a very short period of time. So it sounds like things were kind of going south for you. And was that the catalyst for the major change you took into the foodie world? Was it gradual, or did you just wake up one day and say, I want to do this new thing?
It was a catalyst, and it was very interesting. And now, hindsight's 2020, because back in those days when having to close a business, it was a lot of different events that led me to that place. Nowadays, I recognize that it was a learning process. No,
sure.
At the end of the day, it was a learning process, and it was a catalyst. And I said, well, when I closed the business, we came back to Mexico City when we had our home, and I said, well, what am I gonna do? Back in those days, I connected with the study of Kabbalah. I am a student of Kabbalah for like 10 or 12 years, and that helped me a lot. In those years, I was kind of lost in certain areas, but this study helped me a lot to find myself and to recognize the right path. No? So going back to Mexico City, I said, well, it's important to do what you like and like what you do. So I've always liked to cook. In Mérida, I started going to some wine tastings. I started to kind of had a glimpse of the wine world. Huh? So that's when I said, well, I want to do something related to cooking, something related to wine. That was the turning point. You were mentioning kind of the second chapter of my life. No?
The second act. We get to try new things. Kind of like me. I spent the early part of my life behind a microphone like this one, but talking on the radio between records. And I did that for a long time. And then that didn't really nurture me as much as I wanted it to at some point. And it wasn't that I had changed, it was that the industry had changed.
Yeah.
And then I found wine and I found restaurants. And I'm still doing that. I'm still doing wine, but now podcasting came along and I get to hang out behind this microphone and create some cool stuff.
Yeah, so, it sounds like fun. And
yeah, it's all about, the cycles and just going with the rhythm of life. It sounds like you really have a sensitive instrument where you can read what you need to be doing and you can move from place to place and thing to thing, which is good.
All the time we are getting messages, from the universe or from God or whomever you want to call it. No? But sometimes we don't listen to the messages because we are too busy with our lives, too busy with our problems or what seems to be problems. Really, problems or troubles or difficulties are situations in which there are some hidden message or something to learn, and that comes in the situations when you meet someone, when you get a message or something. No? But there's always something to learn because we came here to grow. No?
I hope that's why we're here, or I hope that's what we're doing while we're here.
What do you think we're here for?
I think we're here to enjoy ourselves and each other. You got to find your people. And it's not hard to find your people because there are so many people.
Yeah.
And they keep making more of them. There's so many people on the planet. You got to be able to find your tribe, people you can groove with and vibe with and enjoy yourself. When I found the wine people in my life, and I didn't know they were waiting for me, my life changed dramatically. It really did.
Mm-hmm. In life, we have different groups. You keep changing from group of friends or making new friends. But the environment, the people that you get along with, it's kind of the energy that nurtures you, and you also nurture the people that you met with or that you hang out with. It's good because that's what life is. No, it's experiences, moments, situations, and as you were saying, it's kind of enjoy people. But also when you have some difficulty or some tough moments, it's good to have people that you can talk to, your family, your friends. That's the energy that gets you through the moments. No.
Speaking of moments, this is the moment that you've been waiting for, Javier. This is when I reveal to you what's in my glass.
Wow, I'm curious.
I know that you are because I've been swirling it at you. Okay, I have a red wine also, as you can tell. I'll be posting pictures of my bottle and your bottle on Instagram. This is a red wine from Portugal, but it's not port. A lot of people think Portugal, port. That's it. The fortified dessert wine that if you drink a little bit too much of it after dinner, you're going to have a headache the next day. This is a beautiful red wine from Portugal, and it's not from the main region, the Douro, where most of the big wines come from, which is kind of in the northern half of the country. This is from the southern half of the country, an area called Alentejano.
Oh, yeah. It's similar to Spanish. Mm-hmm.
I'm here talking to you, and if we speak Spanish, we say an H sound for that J, and in Portuguese, it's more of a J sound. It's more of a J sound. So this one...
It's Alentejo, no?
Alentejo, yes. But in Portuguese, Alentejo.
Alentejo.
Sim. Mm-hmm. The wine is called Rubrica. That's the name of the wine, Rubrica. And in the Portuguese, Rubrica means signature. But it can mean a lot of different things. Rubrica, if you look up the etymology of the word, rubric in English means a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. But in the Portuguese and in the intent of the word rubrica on this wine is that it is the signature wine. The grapes come from the home property, which is 8 hectares, which I believe is about 12 or 13 acres. So we're talking about a small little piece of property where they grow the grapes. The main thing you need to know about this wine, it's a blend, but not only is it a blend, it's a blend of what I would call probably most of the grapes we think of as the darkest grapes, the grapes that make the darkest wines. For instance, Alicante Bouchette. So it's very dark-skinned and actually has dark flesh, which is unique among red wine grapes. Also, Touriga Nacional, which is the big dark red wine grape that they grow in Portugal. Also, another one called Aragonés. And then one from France, Syrah, also a very dark-skinned grape that makes a very dark wine. And then, if that wasn't enough, Petit Verdot, which is from a different region in France, but Petit Verdot in the Bordeaux region is used to add darker color to the blend of those Bordeaux wines. So this wine, when I saw it, I thought, this is interesting because these are all very dark grapes. I have to have it. And when I poured it in the glass for the first time, I thought, wow, this is a very, very dark red wine. When I held it up to my nose for the first time, I thought, this is so dense smelling It's almost weird. It has in the nose something that you don't get very often, this really intense minerality that leans toward what I can only describe as iron.
Okay.
Like the smell of iron ore, or maybe the iron you would smell at a smelter, in a very good way. But it's a very intense smell. And then you get into all the very, very, very dark fruit smells and a lot of earthy smells. And this wine, I feel like this is from the 2013 vintage.
2013, okay. Definitely that wine calls for a steak, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And here I am, in the middle of the day, just drinking this by itself. We're recording this in the middle of the day, and I'm just drinking it by itself while recording. I will be finishing this glass later, maybe with something a little bit meatier.
That's right. Sounds like a very interesting wine. It's also an interesting blend. I was looking here at the map. That's in south Portugal, no?
Yeah, that's the southern part of Portugal. It's not, one of the more heralded regions of Portugal, but I did a little research on this region. They call it the breadbasket of Portugal. They have vast countryside, undulating plains, and rich, fertile soil. And it's mostly agriculture, livestock, and forestry down there in the south. Several types of traditional cheeses, wines, and smoked hams and sausages made in the Alentejo region. They're also known for olive oil and mining industries, a lot of marble. They're mining a lot of marble down there.
Wow.
Those are some of the other important activities in the region. And then this really strikes close to home here. The region is home to the world's most important area for the growing of cork. The cork oak trees, they call them sobriero, grown commercially in the region for the past 300 years. The bark of the cork oak is still harvested by teams of men using locally made hand axes. No mechanical method has yet been invented that will allow the harvest to be achieved as effectively. They're still pulling the bark off of these trees the way they've been doing it for 300 years, which I find pretty fascinating.
They have to peel the tree literally,
Yeah, they peel the tree about every 7 years to get the oak off there. And the cork oak tree is the only tree known that will allow this regular stripping of bark without damaging the tree. Now, here's a fun fact. The harvest of one mature tree provides bark to produce about 4,000 wine corks. Wow. So if anybody ever asks you when you're talking about cork oak trees, and I know you talk about this all the time, and they say, how many corks do you get from one tree? About 4,000, but only every 7 years or so do you get to do that.
So that's an interesting industry. I'm going to teach you another word in Spanish that you're going to like it. You know what's the Spanish word for bark, for the bark in the cork?
Tell me.
It's alcornoque.
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 Alcornoque. See, I can roll my R's pretty well, can't I?
Yeah, you're improving your accent. Alcornoque.
Alcornoque. That's the term for the bark itself?
That's right, for the
bark
covering of
from the cork tree.
That's right, exactly.
Alcornoque.
Alcornoque.
It almost sounds like okie dokie.
Okie dokie smoky.
So that's the wine that's in my glass. It's a dark, dark, dark wine.
Good.
And this
cheers.
is, like I said, cheers to you, Javier. Now, can you tell me about wine consumers in Mexico City? Say we go out to a nice place to eat there, and I really hope to come see you one day.
Yeah. You have to come.
What do the wine lists look like? What's the makeup of a wine list in a nice restaurant in Mexico City? I know it's a thriving restaurant community there.
Yeah, it depends on the restaurant. Now, but what we're doing right now is kind of try to give some support to the local wineries in northern Mexico, in Baja California. It's a region that it's booming in the last years. So you find in the menus in the restaurant some interesting options on the wines of Valle de Guadalupe, which is the northern part of the peninsula of Baja California.
Yeah.
But you find very interesting wines from all over the world, Spain, France, the United States, of course, Australia. So it depends on where you go. But there are some restaurants that they try to dedicate the menu and especially the food that they cook to pair with wines from Baja California. The thing with the wines of Mexico and Baja California are a bit expensive compared to the prices of wines that comes from Europe, which doesn't make a lot of sense if you would think about it. No? But there are small producers, and that's why. No, that's
well, and it's also a younger region, which means they've just started buying the land and buying this stuff they need to make the wine and creating the region from scratch. Whereas a lot of the producers in Europe, that's property that was purchased hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And it always used to amaze me at how some of the imports would come in when I was buying wine for restaurants, and say, the Italian importer would come in and I'd say, that's a really great wine. I want that. How much is it? And he would tell me if we wanted to put it on by the glass, he would sell it to me for $8 a bottle.
Wow.
And I thought, how can you do that? You have to make the wine over there and bottle it, pack it up and ship it on a ship all the way across the oceans and then all the way across the country to get it to California. And I can still buy it for $8 a bottle. How does anybody make money?
It's a different industry. It's a different world.
Yeah, it's a different world.
But that answers your question. Yeah, I mean, you find the different kind of wines, and we don't have the tasting rooms that you have there in California, which was a very interesting business model for me. But there are some wine tastings in the restaurants or in different areas or related to some activity with the painting or with, for instance, I just received an invitation a few hours ago that there's this French cheeses store that is offering some wine tasting to come with this exotic, not exotic, with this special French cheese. So that's the kind of offer that you find. No, depends on the restaurant. Wines from all over the world. That's mainly the idea to the wine experience here in Mexico.
Okay.
There's some area it's like 3 hours driving from Mexico City. I'm sure you've heard about this town. It's San Miguel de Allende. I don't know if you heard about it.
I have heard of it, yes.
It's a very beautiful town. We call it here in Mexico a magical town. There's some very interesting wineries there, vineyards, and they're producing some good wine. They have won some awards. My wife and I do these wine trips, like 3-4 times a year. Go to San Miguel de Allende or go to Valle de Guadalupe to know places to find also interesting offers of restaurants and all kind of.
All right, I'm going to start planning my trip. We talked about cooking. You cook for people in the woods or at the beach. When you're at home, what do you like to cook? What's something that when you're getting ready to cook it for your family, they get all excited about? What's one of your specialties de la casa?
Especialidades de la casa. My favorite is when I do it on the grill. No? We have a small terraza here at the apartment. I have my grill. I think that cooking with fire is a great experience. Actually, one of the episodes of my podcast, I did it with a chef on a restaurant here in Mexico. That we went to this pairing dinner, and the whole menu was cooking with fire. In the restaurant, they have the very sophisticated grill, and all the dishes were made with with coal or with how do you call the
real
wood?
fire? Yeah,
fire, yeah.
There are restaurants here in California. They say all live fire cooking.
That's what I'm talking about. So anyway, my favorite option is to cook on the grill, and I do all kinds of stuff there. Roasted vegetables. My favorite food is steak. Or, I like to cook a ribeye. I am. My mouth is watering now. I mean, in the grill you can do many things, no? And also when I cook on the stove in the kitchen, I'm good at doing some pastas. Pastas you can improvise a lot of things. You can kind of do some different combinations. Mm-hmm. And I have a special recipe that I like. That's from my mom. It's codfish. It's a Spanish recipe. Codfish from the Northern Sea on there in Europe. That comes with a lot of ingredients. That's kind of a favorite dish. That kind of transport. I kind of travel back to my childhood, and that's something that I like to cook, and also cook for my family. It's kind of a party happening when I do the codfish.
I can just see it now. You and your family are there. You got some good wine open.
That's right.
Music is playing, and you're in charge in the kitchen.
That's right. And, Yeah, now you mentioned music. Yeah, music is a very special ingredient in any gathering.
Yes.
Kind of evokes memories and moments, and that's a very special ingredient. I always select the music and like to play it, and also brings memory to my kids. No?
Yeah, yeah. Well, especially when you're cooking, it's great to have music going because it can it can push you, it can drive you.
Yeah, definitely.
Javier, obviously you enjoy podcasting since you now have 2 of them.
Yeah.
But have you been a guest on many podcasts?
No, actually, this is the first time. The second time. The first time I was as a translator, but
okay.
It's the first time. Yeah, first time is as a guest, and it's been a good experience. I appreciate very much your invitation, and it's definitely a lot of fun.
It's fun, right? You're not having to ask the questions. You're just waiting for me to ask you a question. And then you just get to talk about yourself, which who doesn't love to talk about themselves, right?
That's right.
Do you listen to a lot of podcasts?
Yeah, I like to listen to podcasts in different areas. As I told you, I've been studying Kabbalah for quite a while. So I listen to some podcasts. One is called Spiritually Hungry, which is very good. I recommend it.
Okay.
Also, another one that is called the Weekly Energy Boost. It's also related to spirituality. It kind of gives you a weekly spiritual forecast, to kind of know how to navigate in life. So it kind of gives me a note in every now and then. I also like to be up to date on what's happening in Mexico and in the U.S. related to not politics, but what's happening in society and what's going on with the people. So I like to listen to a few podcasts.
Yeah, you got to know what's going on in the world. But I like the fact that you're so in touch with this spiritual side of things, because I think that's important.
It's kind of that's something that the same way that I always wanted to find my passion or the thing that I like. Also, when I was young, I was born in a Catholic family. Since I was a very young age, there was some questions. I had some questions, and a lot of things didn't add up to myself at a very young age. No? So I basically didn't practice religion, but I found Kabbalah, which was really what I know that my soul was looking for, and I found a lot of answers and helped me a lot. No?
I'll say it again. I think it's because you're listening. You're doing a lot of listening, and you're hearing the voices or the energies that you need to hear, and that is guiding you through life. I think you're doing okay.
That's what life is all about.
That's what life is all about.
Yeah. That's right. And related to wine, that's an important thing, no?
Wine brings it all together, right?
That's right. That's why we wine it all.
Wine it all. Look for it wherever you find podcasts.
That's right.
Javier, thanks for hanging out.
Thank you, my friend. It was a very good experience. I send you a big hug here from Mexico City. Make sure to plan your trip to Mexico. We'll have a lot of fun here.
Yes, indeed. I hope so. We can do a whole nother podcast episode when I'm there live.
Exactly.
The Tall Mike Wine Podcast was conceived and is written, produced, edited, and maintained by yours truly. I thank you for listening, and I'll ask you again for help in growing the podcast by giving me a rating and a review on your favorite podcast app, and be sure you are subscribed so you don't miss an episode. Did you know there is a whopping 2.5 years of episodes available all for free? Check out the early episodes if you weren't around way back in 2021 when I started. If you want more, head over to my Instagram. Follow me at Tall Mike Wine for pictures of Javier and me from today. Also, earlier this week, I took some fun pictures of the wildlife that lives around the pond at Nicholson Ranch. Those are pretty cool. And of course, all the wines I drink at home, food I'm eating, everything is there on the Instagram. Oh, and coasters, if you'd like some, or for just general feedback, send me an email to tallmikewine@gmail.com. That's episode 44. I appreciate you listening. I'll have another episode soon, but for now, from Novato, California, I'm Mike Stone. Keep swirling, keep sniffing, keep sipping. Cheers.